Hello, everyone, and welcome to this introduction to the press conference. There's probably about 8.5 hours of recorded material there among all the 30-some presentations. And it was just amazing. So I wanted to just give kind of like a little introduction to the uninitiated. Suppose you weren't there at the press conference, you didn't watch it, you're just learning about this for the first time. What is this whole thing? So first of all, the underlying theme and our true north is saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. If we don't save life on Earth, there's really nothing else to talk about. So let's save life on Earth so that we can then heal our planet and heal ourselves, heal each other, all of our sister and brother species and ecosystems and life-supporting systems, and then ultimately transform life on Earth so that we never go into such death spirals again, and actually quite the opposite, head off towards the utopia that is our birthright. So there's kind of some main themes to the press conference. All 30-some presentations are amazing. I highly recommend all of them without exception. And they kind of cluster into four main groups and then another group, so 5 groups total, including other. But the four kind of main clusters that I'm seeing here. One is a new story for humanity, and please watch Pauline's presentation on that. And I mean, she touches on a number of different themes there, but among them. Anyway, just trust me. Just watch Pauline's, okay, on a new story for humanity. And I talk about a new story. Saab talks about a new story. He's actually an author, a writer. Anyway, so new story for humanity. Then shifting from there, it's like, all right, we can tell stories all day long. That's great. But ultimately, how do we make this new story for humanity and for life on Earth a reality? How do we actually do it? And yes, there's a bunch of physical things that we'll need to do, and I'll get to, and the last 2 categories are precisely about very physical things that actually need to get done beyond conversation. But in order to, number one, identify exactly what those things are that are of the highest priority, and to best organize ourselves to do them right. We may only have one shot at a number of these things, given the rate at which things are going. So, bottom line, collective intelligence, us coming together, forming community, and a lot of us talk about forming community. Pauline herself talks about it. Vincent talks about it in the context of Trove, in the context of the press conference. So it's coming together, forming community, having conversations, but not just great conversations, spontaneously. Those are a lot of fun too, and I have those pretty frequently, thankfully. But also, beyond the spontaneous, a designed network of conversations, which itself can spontaneously evolve. So there's spontaneity throughout. I'm not saying don't have spontaneity, but within it, we can have sort of an ordered spontaneity, if you will, even though the order itself might change over time. It can be just like some dynamically evolving fractal or something like that. But anyway, I'm just going to call this whole realm collective intelligence. It's the coming together, it's the forming of community, it's having conversations, spontaneous and otherwise, and also evolving towards a network of conversations and ultimately a collective superintelligence. And beyond those presentations that fall under this general realm of collective intelligence, and some fall in more than one category, so please look out for that. I also provide some links to some other materials about it. But bottom line, we're on the cusp of an exponentially growing collective superintelligence that will just, it's Ray Kurzweil's and Nick Bostrom's dreams come true, but wildly. I mean, just exponentially, which is something that's hard to even conceive of. But it's coming, and we're actually going to need this level of superintelligence in order to not just come up with the solutions. We've mainly come up with the solutions already, but it's getting those solutions implemented, right? In what many could think of as a very vicious rising tides of exponential global warming, right? Rising tides of pandemics, rising tides of ecological destruction, tides of fascism, totalitarianism, etc. So, how do we accomplish all these things in record time in the face of so many challenges? This is going to require collective intelligence. There's no two ways about it. And we might as well shoot for the stars, ad astra, collective superintelligence. So we'll talk lots about this, and I talk about lots about this in different segments. All right, so we've got story as one major category, a new story for humanity. We've got collective intelligence as another major category, the collective community. And then I promised two mega categories in the realms of something very physical. So one is all about food, full stop, food. It's all about food. And there's really, two main parts of that. One is transforming the human diet to an entirely plant-based diet for so many reasons, but not the least of which is to save and heal the planet and all of our ecosystems and sister and brother species. Another major part about food is about feeding everyone. Put those two together, you have feeding everyone plant-based foods. That's the essence of food healers and what BJ's doing. So anyway, we have the whole food part. The fourth and final category, and another very physical category, is it's all about the boops, and the category is boops in heat. A boop is a measure of heat, and we'll get deep into that. But the bottom line is the planet's overheating exponentially. One boop is the amount of energy humanity consumes in 1 year. We are overheating at a rate of 137 boops of net heat. How could that be? 137 times the heat that even we're generating ourselves? How could that be? Here's why. 9,000 boops of energy are incoming from the sun, landing on the Earth every year, the whole Earth atmosphere system. Okay, and there's a lot of complexity there. But the bottom line is 9,000 land. Most of them escape, get either reflected or re-radiated out eventually, but not all of them escape. 137 get trapped. We're overheating at a rate of 137 boops per year, and that number is growing. And guess what? If we achieve net zero, that number grows by leaps and bounds with the loss of global dimming. So it's something that needs to be treated holistically. And the bottom line, number one solution, Guy McPherson talks about it. Dr. Silas Rao talks about it. Professor Stephen Salter talks about it. Dr. Yetow is talking about it. Everyone's talking about it, okay? And it is precisely how do we cool the planet using reflectivity? Another name for that is solar radiation management. So that's all in the realm of the boops. There's a lot of segments that are on the topic of the boops. I do several of those segments. I'm just going to read through just a really short list of them. So we've got Guy talking about the problem of exponential planetary overheating. He quantifies it. He talks about its predicted outcomes. We have so little time left. He says we have to act now, and I couldn't agree more. Silas talks about the climate bathtub as a model and as a challenge. Well worth watching. Professor Stephen Salter talks about cooling the planet through marine cloud brightening. One of the various different forms of solar radiation management within the MIRROR framework, which Guy McPherson talked about as well, led by Dr. Yetow. And Jonathan Cole talks about solar radiation management. I go through about 8 short segments at the end. I'm just going to read some of the titles. Dear Umair, it's all about the boops. Guy McPherson's Martini Glass. Boop reduction. We need a massive boop reduction program. It's the heat, stupid. Another is our planet's problems analogous to a dysfunctional family. Another must-see, marine cloud brightening, it's all about the boops. Another, it's not about the temperature, it's about the boops, stupid. Urgency or no urgency, which is it? Environmentalists finding the right note. Marc-Antoine led a great discussion on that. A huge conversation, about 10 minutes long, on what if nobody cries wolf, as asked by Carol Roshana. Anyway, that just gives you an idea of how hot it is. Hot. It's getting hotter, and we're out of time. So anyway, one way or another, we got to get to the boops. We got to cool the planet. We also need to take care of the food part. That's essential for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth as well. To support both of those, we need a new story and collective intelligence. So boom, 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 boom. Those are the big four clusters. A lot of collective intelligence is about community, recreating local community, per Simon, the AIM program, per Brandon. None of the Above by Eric. That's a brilliant little segment. BIPOC Sustainable Tiny Art House Communities by Carol Roshana. Those are must-sees in the realms of community. In the realms of food, we got BJ, Sarah, Judy, myself. In the realms of healing generally, we've got, because why do we come together for? We come together as communities to heal and save life on Earth in the case of SRM and the food transformations I was mentioning earlier. But saving and healing life on Earth generally. So, in the realms of healing, we got Laz with eco-bricking, healing the planet, Kat Haber, Sherry, Claire, Shannon, Aliki, all talked about different forms of healing. And I've mentioned the great stuff about A New Story for Humanity. So start with Pauline's A New Story for Humanity. And then go from there. So you'll see a list of videos for each of these major categories, including the other category. It really must see all of them. But this way, at least you can take it in organized chunks, right? So go to the major category, look at the link to the presentation. It'll show how long each is. Please feel free to add your comments. And beyond all this, we have tremendous urgency for coming together and doing events like this, right? And there's so many great events and venues out there for people coming together. We have put together a challenge which we're promoting. Haven't actually sent the invitation yet, so this is a little premature, but we're getting ready to make a very public invitation to Umair Haque to join us for the Dear Umair sessions and leading towards what I'm going to call the 8,000, 80,000, 800,000 exponential growth cycle, those three numbers being but three milestones of a continuous evolution and progression towards a really significant critical mass of us, the change makers, who Vincent Arena and company, including myself, are working to facilitate everyone, all the change makers getting up on Trove. And the press conference is a vehicle for us to come together and find each other and communicate to the rest of the change makers in a very efficient way. Yes, it takes 8.5 hours to do, but then look at the index. You can zero right into the 1 or 2 minute video that you're really looking for. Start there, see how it's connected, because this whole thing was one continuous event. We didn't actually even pause recording. We didn't pause recording once for the whole 8.5 hours approximately of recording. So anyway, yes, I'm promoting the press conference here. I'm also promoting Trove, but more generally, I'm promoting all of us coming together. And let me talk a little bit more about that. I've got all these notes on what we're talking about here. Let's see here. Yeah, in terms of coming together, I can't emphasize this enough. There are so many different great, venues out there. There's Humanity Rising, there's the Chat People, there's Our Hearts Gardens, Gaia Zoom Room, the Nova Sutras. Um, it's endless. The block party, the collective intelligence block party every Friday. It goes for 24 hours. It's just like, hey, everyone involved in anything related to collective intelligence, come to the block party, and check in at least. Some people just come and check in for a few minutes. Others are there for hours. But anyway, we've got all these great venues. As these are coming together, there's kind of an obvious milestone, which is I call the 8,000. Remember, 8,000, 80,000, 800,000. The 8,000 milestone is when 8,000 people come together. It may sound like a big number, but it's 1 in 1 million humans, right? So if the most radical, passionate, committed change makers can't find each other and come together in a group of 8,000, we've got other problems. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. Umair Haque alone could round up the 8,000, but more broadly, with the press conference, with Trove, with Dear Umair, right? With Humanity Rising, with the Chat People, with the Nova Sutras, with all these different venues and communities that I've mentioned. Guy McPherson has a great community. Yetao has a great community. Lots of people have their own sort of individual communities. This is all about all of us coming together. 8,000 of us, whether representing ourselves as individuals or representing our communities or whatever. Think of it as just kind of like this mega United Nations of communion, people coming together. If 8,000 of us come together, that's 1 in a million of us, but coming together very intentionally in a structure of a network of conversations that's hyper-connected to each other. I talk a lot about this in the Dear Umair segment on averting catastrophe or whatever it's called, but we'll look for the word catastrophe. That's definitely in the Dear Umair title. I talk about it extensively there. The concept is very simple. And I just want to be clear where I'm heading towards in all this. I'm not just happy doing press conferences and that's great. No, we've got to get to this singularity. Because once we have 8,000 people in a network of around 1,000 conversations, that's hyperconnected, that's recorded, that's transcribed, right? The transcripts are indexed in real time. Therefore, they're programmatically accessible to all the other 1,000 conversations. So imagine each one of these is in a Zoom room or a breakout room. So you have 1,000 conversations, 8 people each, spanning all the different topics that we're covering here at the press conference and many more, right? And some spanning in multiple different ways. We need probably hundreds of conversations on the boops alone just because the planet's on fire and we got to put out the fire. That's clearly the most urgent thing. But there's a number of things that I'm just going to say are equally urgent, and we need to pursue them all in parallel, like this whole collective intelligence thing. That facilitates SRM. The food thing facilitates cooling and healing the planet, right? So it's all interconnected. It's all hyper-connected. So that's why we need to take a network of conversations approach to this. But anyway, just some more notes while I'm here. Togetherness is the cauldron. It's all about all of us coming together. So, how do we do that? To that end, we started working on this thing called the Chrysalis calendar, which is, you could sort of think of it as a blockchain of all the transformational conversations happening within this broader chrysalis, right? Which was also talked about during the press conference, different aspects of this. So I'll include some links to some videos about especially pertaining to the Chrysalis calendar. But anyways, it'll all be on a blockchain. It'll be unmessable with, versus the current social dilemma, dystopia, Facebook, etc. And so through all these different vectors, which, again, I envision could be populating some open source Chrysalis calendar that nobody owns. It's just this totally open source blockchain. Yes, it'll have integrity. Yes, there'll be rules. Yes, there'll be agreements, et cetera, et cetera. But, like any autonomous or independent autonomous organization that's blockchain based, It'll be totally transparent and fundamentally unmessable with. That's really important. So conspiracy theorists, don't go too far. We're not going to, get shut down because we're designing this in a way that can't be shut down. And that's a whole portion of the network of conversations, just the whole collective intelligence part, the governance part, the blockchain parts, et cetera, the open source, every aspect of it. Just some other notable things I want to point to related to all this. Dear Umair, The Age of Needless Catastrophe. That's the one that's got the 8,000, 80,000, 800,000 evolution. We've got Dear Umair, Meet Professor Salter. We've got Dear Umair, It's All About the Boops. Yeah, I talk about Dear Umair in one of the segments. What is Dear Umair? What's it all about? So feel free to check that one out. A lot of them are on the boops, like I said. Guy McPherson's Martini Glass, that's a must-see. That really helps clarify that it's really about the heat, not about the temperature. So anyway, all the links are there. Please join us. Join Trove, and there's lots of ways for us to get connected within Trove. Also, feel free to join my email list, and that way you'll directly get all the emails of all the events coming up and what's going on. I'm on Zoom most days of the week, and very notably on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, especially Fridays, and then Thursdays when we have the press conference, which we're aiming towards maybe having this once a month, something like that. But it may take us a couple of months to get there. But in the meantime, we've got so many other forms of interaction, communication. We've got open houses. Check that out up on Trove. Anyway, with that, I hope that's provided a sufficient introduction. And if you have any questions, please fire them our way. And we'd love to see you in a meeting soon. So join us in our meetings, whether at the Block Party, Glass Beads game, planning meetings for Trove and the press conference, Our Hearts Gardens, so many great venues that you can join. It's all about us coming together. So let's keep coming together and let's get on this evolutionary exponential trajectory towards collective superintelligence with the final aim of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.